Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Perot. Welcome to another episode of Catch Up with JP. Today's guest is Mr. Jim Rushford. Mr. Rushford played 14 years of professional baseball, spent 27 days in the big leagues. Crazy interesting story of how he got to the big leagues. So interesting, he wrote a book about it. There's a quote in the book that says something like, I wrote this book because I felt like I had a very interesting story, but I sat on it for a decade because I didn't really think maybe my story is not more interesting than anybody else's. Guarantee you it is. You should pick up this book. I've actually read it twice. It's a fascinating story about this gentleman's life, not just his career, but his life. I recommend you pick it up. It's available on Amazon. I'll have a link to it. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Jim Rushford, 2002 Milwaukee Brewer and author of this book, The Pizza Guy Delivers. I'll tell you, usually when you discuss a player's baseball career, it's kind of a straight line. They went to high school, went to college, got drafted, A ball, double A, triple A, big leagues. You are anything but a straight line. I didn't know where to start. Give us a little walkthrough about of how you got to the big leagues, from not being drafted after college to delivering pizzas to Milwaukee.
It was a crazy ride, and it was one in a million, and I'm really lucky. But coming out of
You worked your tail off, buddy. There's a place that you can say luck some things, but I don't see a lot of luck involved in yours. It's a lot of hard work.
yeah, I mean, you just gotta put your head down and keep going until something works out. But through high school, you had like probably the same kind of career that anyone who made it would have had. Like I was an all-state player in high school, and I had a D1 scholarship to San Diego State. And in college, I played my 4 years, but I was mediocre at best. Things just never came together for me, never really clicked. And the 4 years came and went, and I wasn't drafted. And I just moved
You
on.
were you were a decent pitcher, a decent hitter, kind of through
I
your
was a
college career as a two-way player.
two-way player. I was probably better at pitching than hitting. The left-handed pitcher, so you have a little advantage there. Coming out of college, I could have played independent ball, and I thought I didn't really understand what independent ball was. So I just thought, well, I guess I got to move on to the next chapter in life. I finished school and started looking for jobs, and I got a job as a roofer uh, in San Diego in a hot summer. Built the roof of a Kmart for $7 an hour. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing this for? I could make the same money and play baseball at least. So
Yeah, right, really. The money in independent ball is not a lot, especially back in those days.
it's not a lot, but $7 an hour to you know in the hot sun and being a roofer wasn't any better. That's for sure. And decided the next year to go out and try to make an independent team. I eventually landed on a team and had a great time and um, did really well. Improved a lot as a player. Also, that the time off really did me some good. It gave me new perspective on things. And the
Yeah.
following year, I did make a team again, but I was having arm problems, and I made the team as a pitcher, and I got released. So I thought, well, now I'm really done. And again, I worked a lot of odd jobs, some construction stuff, and the big one was I was pizza delivery. I also worked like as a bar back and a bouncer and a busboy, Croce's in downtown San Diego. It was nothing that was going to be a career.
But nothing that would really miss you if a big league organization came calling.
Nah, exactly. So I was going to go back to school. I'd graduated and get my teaching credential. I was a PE major, or kinesiology, if you want to make it
Right, right.
sound a little smarter. But I didn't have the credential, so I was working towards that. But then I wanted to play baseball again, so I got out there and I did a little semi-pro, and it went really well. So I'm like, well, let me just give this thing one more shot. And I went unannounced to a tryout in Schaumburg, Illinois, for the Schaumburg Flyers in the Northern League.
A heck of a trip from San Diego.
Yeah, and I just, I just killed it, and I was just kind of they took me on the team. Not really. I was like probably the one guy they didn't plan on making it that made it type of thing. I played a few years in more of independent ball. I did really well, and sure enough, my very first coach, R.C. Lichtenstein, who was for my
It
independent.
was actually the pitching coach when I worked for the Montgomery Biscuits
Okay, right,
in
yeah.
2012, 13. Yeah, 2012, 13. So yeah,
He spent
we
forever.
know a lot of the same people. That's for sure.
Right. Well, at that time, before he got with the D-Rays, his first gig was out of independent ball was with the Brewers. And he's like, we're cleaning house here. We're starting all over. We need a guy who can just show the younger guys like the ropes a little bit, be a good example and stuff. And he's like, I think I can get you in. And I'm like, okay, that'd be great. But I really, I didn't think it was going to materialize, you know. But, sure enough, he came through for me, and the Brewers signed me and brought me to spring training. And so
And he mashed.
I'm like 27 years old already. So this is like, I would say it's unheard of anymore, almost. I got my
Yeah.
shot.
Everybody's with social media and the internet. Everybody's there's no unknown commodities out there anymore.
Right.
Everybody's known at some level.
Exactly. But, at the time, it just, there was a little room for, those long shot stories like that because
Yeah.
there wasn't so much, information overload all over. And once I got there, I just made the most of it. I just mashed. I was crushing the ball. I was leading high A and hitting, so they're like, well, let's give him a shot at double A, and I killed it in double A. So then, the next year they put me at triple A, and I did really well in triple A too. And what happened that really like where there's a lot of luck is just if I was on the Yankees or the Red Sox, the story might have ended there, But with the Brewers, they were on a 100-loss season, and they prospects weren't doing all that well. And there was an injury. Jeff Jenkins uh, busted his ankle right at the end of the year, and between all those things, they gave me a shot, and they called me up to the big leagues, and I got my 27 days of service time. Then that would have been 2002.
So where were you when you got the call?
So I was in Louisville.
Remember?
Louisville,
Okay.
and it was the last game of the season, and they called the manager in the dugout, and he gave him a little report how I did in the game, and they said, "All right, have him meet the big club in Chicago because they're playing the
That's
Cubs."
awesome.
So Chicago's where I grew up, and I got to make my major league debut in Wrigley Field, and I had grown up a Cubs fan. Of course, I'm on the opposing team now, and it was a Friday night game, and they were just the fans were just heckling me mercilessly.
You had to have some friends and family in the place though.
I did, but it just so happened that dozens of people that I just knew from growing up happened to show up to the game.
I
So
got you.
like a girl I went to grade school with since kindergarten. She's at the game, and she just took a million pictures of me and made a whole photo album for me of that first game. All
That's awesome.
great pictures. I'm so glad I have them. And I mean, it was nerve wracking because that's in front of all the people you grew up, your hometown team. That it was just like added even more to the pressure of the situation. But
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's what you prepared for. How old were you at the time? 20, 29, 30, 29?
So
Around there?
yeah, I don't know if I was
29?
28 or 29. I think I
Yeah.
was really 29, and they thought I was 28 because when the
I
Brewers.
mentioned that. I was gonna. We're definitely gonna get to this.
Okay.
But I have your book here in front of me, and I read this book 3 years ago when I bought it. My daughter just turned 3, so you can imagine what my life was like exactly 3 years ago. I probably didn't digest most of it, but I skimmed back through it last night or last couple of nights, and I remembered the story about your age was a little questionable.
Uh,
You might have even forgot how old you are.
so I think
um,
I can make it make sense. when I took that year off after college, and then it was a roofer, and then I go back the next year to play independent ball, they're like, I'm like, well, why don't I just get that year back for myself? So I just, everything's pencil and paper back
It was a
then.
harmless little,
Well,
fib.
yeah, because it's like there's no sense, there's no really internet yet. There's no central databases. There's like none of that. And I'm thinking I'm just gonna put
Right.
a year younger, and the scouts will think I just got out of college, and if they like me, it'll help my chances of maybe somebody picking me up. And it's just gonna go on, the program at the
The
stadium,
media guide, the program.
something for this little independent league I'm in. But sure enough, like I somewhere, I'm now in the system as being a year younger, and um, the few times it's come up over the years, uh, they would just say, "Don't worry about it. Just never mind." So I'm like, okay,
We see your swing. All right, so you had the time in the big leagues with Milwaukee. Um, you didn't finish the season up in the big club with the Brewers.
well, yeah, that was,
What happened next?
yeah, that was a
Or
September
did
call.
did you finish the season?
So I did finish, but it
Yeah.
was a
Okay.
September call up, and
Okay.
the next year they non-tendered my contract. I went to Texas for spring training and started in AAA with them, and they released me. The Brewers took me back. And I went back to AAA with the Brewers and got back on track and did well. And then I spent another 4 years with the Phillies, mostly all at AAA. Um, I went to big league camp
There's
with.
some good reading in the book. The Pizza Guy Delivers. There's some. That was almost the most interesting. The whole book is interesting from the beginning. Like I said, your career was not a straight line, but that little time with the Phillies, not that little time, those 4 years, just the way you described it in your book, um, was just something to definitely want to read about. It had a little drama to it.
But yeah, I did get to go to big league camp with both with Texas and with the Phillies a couple times. My one stint in the big leagues, I hit a home run, so that's kind of like my most cherished moment of my career. Um,
Yeah.
and I got.
You hit as many in 27 days in the big leagues as you did in 4 years of college, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I didn't hit a single home run in college till my senior year, and it was on a 3-0 take sign. And I couldn't understand why he was giving me the take sign. I'm like, this guy's he's just gonna lay it right in there for me.
He's gonna throw a meatball
This
down
is
the
my
middle.
chance. Well, we're playing University of Hawaii, and it happened to be a blowout game. We're killing them, and I didn't know about those unwritten rules, like you don't like try to run up the score.
Stealing second base when you're up 20.
Yeah, I had no idea. So that's probably why the coach was giving me the take side. But I had no idea. And I'm like, screw that. This is my chance. And I swung with all my might, and it barely connected. It barely cleared the fence by like 2 feet. But I, after college, I spent a lot of time in the weight room, and that extra strength just, it gave me a ton more power. And there's some things about my swing and just my approach at the plate too that was funny is some of it's weightlifting, some of it's hitting in the cages, but I made a lot of improvements just by not playing, and that just having a whole new perspective on the game.
Yeah, you gave yourself a little rest in this muscle, right?
Yeah,
Is that
and all of a sudden, when I came back as an older, more mature person, it all made sense to me, and hitting clicked, and everything made sense, and it was easy all of a sudden. And I had all that extra power, and it translated into good numbers and got me through. To a pretty long career. I ended up playing like 7 years of AAA. I never got another chance in the big leagues, but I put up good numbers for a lot of years in AAA.
has a little bit of time in Mexico and some time in the independent leagues after that stint with the Phillies. I had some stuff highlighted off to my sides here that I kind of missed. I kind of breezed over. I was in Team USA. That has to be a heck of an experience. Uh,
Oh yeah, that was awesome, and that was my first
uh,
time leaving the country. We played in Panama, for Pan Am games, and that was a little stroke of luck too because Team USA had just won the gold medal. That was a team with like Ben Sheets, uh, and they won the gold medal. And Major League Baseball did not want to send their guys at that point in time, so they went to the independent leagues and they just grabbed independent players. And our goal was we need to place fifth or better, and that qualified us for I don't know, the Olympics. We're at a three-way after the round robin. We're a three-way tie for first, and the way they did the tiebreaker, we got kind of screwed, and we ended up not being in the bracket where you could get a gold medal. So all we could do was get a fifth place. But just
Heck of an experience.
getting to be there, though, yeah, that was awesome. Because that was a weird situation that even allowed that to happen.
That might be one of the parts of your career that you could kind of chalk up to luck. Being in the right place at the right time, kind of that to get that Team USA invite. Of course, it took tons of hard work, like I said, to get there, to create your own luck.
There's you have lots of failures along the way, but you learn from them all, and you meet people and you network, and the more you're out there and in front of people, well, the better you get at it, but also the better your odds of being in the right place at the right time. You have to make sure you're giving yourself as many opportunities as possible.
You create your own luck is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a baseball related phrase, but it's also a life phrase. You work hard, the way you treat people gets you further in life and baseball.
Definitely.
And also, but probably breeze over. Now, we crossed paths in 2001, and I'd forgotten the story because I was the home clubhouse manager for the Birmingham Barons in 2001 when you were with the Huntsville Stars. Now, at the end of that season, my memory was foggy, but rereading your book unclogged that. Somehow, I came in my storage unit in Colorado, which is 1,500 miles away from where I live, I have a Jim Rushford game-used Huntsville Stars cap. And in my memory, you guys ended the season with us, and we're just kind of throwing stuff in the trash. And I was like, I'm going to get a couple hats. And one of them said Rushford on the inside. Now, rereading the book, you guys beat us in the playoffs. You knocked us out of the playoffs. And your version of the story is in the book, and you can tell as well. But then shortly after we got knocked out of the playoffs and you guys advanced to go play Jacksonville, September 11th happened.
Right.
I packed up my clubhouse, went home, woke up a couple days later to my alarm clock radio with the news. And then, things happened, and the Huntsville Stars and Jacksonville Suns were named co-champions. So, did you guys get rings from that?
I think so. I would have to dig through my memorabilia.
So, as I said, that was this close to get my first championship ring. And man, what a series of events from that. And I ran across. I followed your career after that, just like I have everybody that came to the league and everybody in minor league baseball. But somehow I know I have probably 10 of those Huntsville Stars game used hats, and maybe one says Pickler, maybe one even says Sheets or Hall on it. But I just know in my head that the one I can remember says Rushford on the inside of it. So I have that. And if I ever get back to Colorado to pick up my storage unit, buddy, I am sending you a picture of that. Not the actual hat, it's mine now. But I'll send you a picture of that.
I hope it smells better than when I left you.
It's been in a storage unit for a minute now. It might have holes in it. I don't know. So one of the things that my podcast I focus on is players transition at the end of their career where they kind of realize, okay, it's time to start thinking about life after baseball and what I need to do. But going through your book, I think I counted, you had like 5 of those.
Yeah.
From college to a couple of indie balls to Mexico to Chicago White Sox to Tucson. Right. I think you had 5 or 6 of those moments.
So I already kind of did 2 of them. One was just out of college thinking, I did the best I could, let's move on. And the second time was getting released out of independent ball, really because I was having an arm issue, But then after Phillies for 4 years, nobody in 08, nobody signed me. I'm substitute teaching. I'm living in the Tucson area, and this is the last year the White Sox are spring training in Tucson. The AAA manager for the White Sox is now going to be Mark Bombard, who had been my AAA manager with the Phillies for one season anyway. And he was my manager in Venezuela. So like I did get to play in Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico, the Dominican. I got to do them all. It was awesome. I love those experiences. So I just drive up to Tucson and I talk to Buddy Bell, who's the player development guy, the White Sox at the time. And I just talked my way into spring training, and so I went to spring training every day, and I did great. But at the very last couple of days, they released me, and I was pretty devastated because I knew at that point, gosh, I'm 33 or 4 years old, and I'm
How healthy were you? Any injuries at the time? 2008.
no,
Yeah.
I was totally healthy and I was in good shape, and I could have, and I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that I couldn't go to AAA and still do well. But I think the problem is the numbers, the people they had, and the number of spots, and my age, and if I think they felt like this guy's not going to be like an insurance for the big league team, then he's we don't want to waste a spot on him. And they had already done all their signing before I talked my way in, so I'm just like an extra add-on. So, but I mean, I did everything I could. I did well. It's an uphill battle.
They probably had 60 guys in camp with you being the 60th, and to work your way up to be the 40th or so. That takes
Something like
some luck.
that. Yeah, so I was pretty. I was upset because I knew this is probably over. Not by my choice, but because nobody wants me anymore. And then you got to decide, like you got to play independent ball. You got to keep doing it, this and that. At this point in time, I'm older. I've been married for a long time. I got family. I got 3 kids. I got a mortgage. And baseball's not a
And you, by this time, had you started your other career? And what was your other career? What did you go into after baseball?
Just basically, I get hooked up with the Oaxaca, the Mexican League. I go for a week. I did fine, but they dumped me. And then I come home. I get an offer from independent ball. But simultaneously, I had went into a local copper mine here in Tucson. And I said, look, I just had a long professional baseball career. It's over. I have a family to support. I just need a job, that pays the bills. And they offered me the job. So when it was between, going to independent or taking the copper mine job, I was just like, at this point, I can't gamble anymore. It's just because you'd go play independent, it would have been great. I'm in shape. I'm ready to play. But that season's going to last 3.5 months, and then I would be out of a job again. And, I don't think I have any health insurance for not just me, but my whole family. I had to, I took so many risks, and I took a chance on myself. I always gambled on myself. I believed in myself.
And that's what got you to the big
That's what
leagues.
got me there. But at this point in time, I'm like, this is like, it's gone too far now. Like, I got to just make the sensible decision. So, I took the job at the copper mine. I loved it. They taught me how to drive those massive haul trucks. They're like as big as like 2-story houses.
That's awesome.
The tires are.
My little kids love watching shows about giant dump trucks. So yeah, they're about the haul trucks.
Yeah, these things, you got to climb up a ladder like to the second story just to get into the driver's seat. The tires are 12 feet in diameter. They're over 1 million pounds loaded. They taught me how to drive one in 6 weeks. All I had to do was show up, pair of jeans and steel-toed boots. They gave me a hard hat and the other PPE I needed, and they taught me how to drive one. And it was pretty cool, and I liked it. I was making great money. It had benefits, and there's a pension that came with it. It was a union job, and so I'm working all the overtime I can because I'm trying to catch up on my bills. And then about 8 months in, that's when the economy tanked. There in '08, the real estate bubble popped, and then the stock market crashed, and then
everybody stopped building. The price of materials and minerals went down.
Well, yeah, like right now, like copper is like about $4.50 a pound. Well, it went down to like $1.50 a pound. So they couldn't make money anymore. And the way it worked is, it went by seniority, and I had been the last person hired, so I was the first person laid off. And at that point in time, I mean, like, well, you had to have lived through it to remember it. But I mean, it was like the whole world came to a screeching halt. There was just no economic activity
Jobs and
whatsoever.
homeless unemployment. Yeah,
I mean,
people lost their life savings in the stock market.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a
I
rough
mean, it
time.
was an absolute disaster. I mean, I think people forget 'cause
Yeah.
we've been away from it for a while, but I mean, this was a scary time and pretty devastating for a lot of people.
You kind of think that, am I ever going to find a job again?
Oh, yeah. No, that
or,
was
or
no
am I
chance.
going? Are you going to go back to being the pizza guy?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I
that's a
mean, yeah, you couldn't even. I mean, people weren't even ordering pizzas. That's like, I mean, it's like you couldn't
yeah.
ask someone if
Every nickel.
you could, like, pick their weeds or anything for money. Like, it was just everybody was holding on to their money because nobody knew what was going on.
How'd you make it through?
Well, I quit paying my mortgage because I couldn't pay my mortgage anymore, but I did pay my,
It's a great way to save money.
yeah, I did the first thing I did. So my wife started, was working again because once my
Okay.
baseball career was winding down, she had got a job, but she was not making, she had been out of the workforce for many years. So she was starting at the bottom. So she was barely making anything. So that was just enough to, you know, pay the electricity and the water and stuff. I did get unemployment, but in Arizona, unemployment's awful. Like it's just enough so you can eat.
No,
And
not much.
now all of a sudden, Tucson Toros going to be a new independent team in Tucson in the Golden Baseball League, and Tim Johnson's going to be the manager. And I'm like, no way, like still in
It's a
shape.
small world. Did you know Tim Johnson before
So I
that?
knew Tim from playing in Mexico because he had
Yeah,
coached Mexico.
yeah. Baseball is just such a small
Yeah,
world that you. I mean, you and I have crossed paths, a couple times with different people and stuff. That yeah,
yeah,
you definitely would probably know Tim Johnson.
yeah. TJ. So like he had coached Mexicali. I played for Hermosillo a few years earlier. Oscar Suarez was basically working as my agent at the time. I was also Tim Johnson's real close friend. So I call Oscar.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I want to play for this team. Can you give Tim a call and let him know? And so I played a whole nother year that I never thought I would get to play. And had a great time, did really well. Team came in first. We got to the championship. We lost the championship, but I mean, it was just like an awesome season, and it was like so much better than the way baseball ended the first time. So the first time baseball ends, I pretty much got no choice but, hey, let's just get the regular job. And the whole time I'm working at that copper mine, even though the job's good, I'm going, what am I doing here? Like, I never envisioned myself. Uh, I grew up in the suburbs. Like, I didn't ever envision myself like operating heavy equipment.
In
And
steel toe boots.
yeah, like this is really weird. But I needed the money, and so I get to play again, and it's just like this last hurrah, and it just was so much nicer of a way to um, end a career. Right, the season ends, a couple months go by, and I'm going to get evicted from my house. Like, fortunately, there were so many foreclosures, they didn't kick me out right away. So I was able to
Yeah.
live in my house for a number of months. And I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? The economy was starting to come back. Price of copper was coming up. So the mine called me back. So I got my old job back. So I got my old job back just in the nick of time to be able to rent a house in the same neighborhood right as I was getting kicked out. So, and this time I go back to the copper mine, and now I'm like, kissing the ground. I'm like, this is the best job ever. Like, cause
I'm never leaving this place.
yeah,
Hugging that big 12-foot tire.
exactly. 'Cause I mean, that's what's keeping me alive. That's what's paying the bills. And the work itself, it's hard work. I liked it. Um, you got to do 12-hour shifts. You got to go back and forth between day shifts and night shifts. You got to stay awake all night and drive this massive vehicle. When it rains, those things, they slide down the hill like you're on
Holy
ice.
moly.
So you're in a truck as big as a two-story house, just sliding sideways down the hill, no traction whatsoever, and there's a loaded truck coming up at you. and you got to make sure you don't run into this person. And that person's a sitting duck because when they're loaded, they're only going about 5 miles an hour up the hill and they can't move anywhere. So it's up to you as the
Right.
downhill driver to
Yep.
not kill the guy.
This is how I end.
Yeah, it's. I mean, a lot of people do that. The first time it happens, they quit because sometimes they quit the first
Yeah.
time they walk up the steps and they get to the top of the truck and realize how big it is. Like they're like, nope. And then sometimes it's after that first time driving in the mud and you're sliding all over the place, or they quit, or they like learn how to do something else at the mine because they just don't want to have to do it. But I did.
I don't know. I would. I
If
think.
I had other options in the beginning, I might have quit because it was scary. But I need this job. I need to make this money. I had no choice. I just forced myself. And
And where the book ends,
so I could kind of
you're driving the haul truck. Are you still doing that?
no. I did it for almost 14 years, and I gotta say I got so good at driving that truck that I think I was as good at driving the truck as I was at baseball. Like it was just like an extension of my body, just like my back.
You had two cool jobs. That little 5-year-old Jim probably be like, wait, I get to play baseball and drive a dump truck.
Yeah,
That's a dream for a little kid. You did good for yourself
I
twice.
never really grew up. I mean, it
Right.
was a perfect job. But it was, the hours are rough. It is dangerous. They did start making more and more cuts. We had a strike. We had to go through. I was a substitute teacher. I coached the high school baseball team for my son was on. Um, well, 3 years ago now, I switched to medical bill coding, so I'm able to work from home and
Oh, cool.
million times easier, million times safer.
Make your
I
own
get to make my
schedule.
own
You
schedule.
have your time. There's no zero commute, so you get that time back.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't really beat it, and it's obviously I didn't dream my whole life of being a medical bill coder, but it's a fine job. It does, and it allows me to do all the other things I want to do. You self-identify as a baseball player. It's like it's your entire self-image is that's what you are. That's what makes you special and important, and what makes you feel good about yourself. And you lose that, it's really hard for everybody. Um, but
It was hard for me. I was a clubhouse manager. I was a guy who put out peanut butter and jelly and washed dirty uniforms. And when I left baseball, I mean, my friends thought it was a cool job. It wasn't. I worked 16-hour days, 100 days in a row, whatever. But my friends thought it was cool. And then I left that and I went back to the restaurant business. And yeah, it kind of lost a little bit there. Right? So I personally
so
understand.
like it's
Yeah.
not a job, it's a way of life, and it's your whole identity, it's everything you are. So when the next season started and I'm not on a team, I mean, I guess I described it as, it's like watching your own funeral. You're in the you come to your
Oh, wow.
funeral and you're in the casket.
Yeah,
That's how
you're watching all your friends kind of, who are still playing.
yeah, that's how you feel. I mean, it's an awful feeling, and it's helpless. You're helpless. There's nothing you could do. I mean, it's over. And another thing is, you're losing the thing that you were most passionate about in life, and the thing that got you excited every day. It takes a while, but it could. Eventually, you find something that gets you almost as excited as baseball got you. I would say it's
Hopefully you do.
close to the same, but yeah, and sometimes it's like something you did some other thing you did as growing up, like prior to baseball, but sometimes you find something new. I went back to just weightlifting and running and all that, but I also got really into like economics. But because of the crash and losing my house
Yeah.
and getting laid off and all the things I went through, I'm like, what in the heck is going on? I'm like, I better learn something about this. I got super,
So if it happens again, I can catch myself.
yeah, but I found myself just as excited, like, oh, I can't wait to read this economics article tomorrow or read this book. And I would be so excited, like they would do
That's
for
awesome.
baseball. And like, that's sort of like was one of the things that filled the gap or the hole, that baseball left. But that's what I'd recommend to people is like they find when you recognize something that gets you as excited as baseball or comes close, so though that's what you should be doing. Like that's your next thing to do. And that's the way to get from one from your baseball career onto the next thing.
Yeah. Have you dabbled in working in finance?
Well, I thought about it, I looked into things, nothing really ever came together. It was a very serious hobby for me to learn about. And when it wasn't so much about investing in the stock market. I spent a little more time learning about, macroeconomics and like economic policy and things like that. So it's not, I spent more of my time learning about, uh, instead of the things that are going to make me money, I more learned about the things that might be good for society as a whole or something,
Right, right. A way to not lose your money, even. Yeah. So, and nowadays, this is an interesting time. It's an active
Yeah.
time, we'll say, for your serious hobby of finance.
Right, right. And it has got me reading a lot more stuff again because the thing is, there's so many things happening and you can see the cause and effect. And so I want to follow along and see how different things play out.
Gotcha. That's good. It's good. Something to occupy your brain as well as your body. Now you mentioned you coach your son's baseball team, and here the last thing that it mentions this was printed in 2022. Last thing it mentions he was all state, correct? What's he been up to since then? Fill us in. The world needs to know what's going on with Milo.
So I should have, that one year I played with the Toros, the clubhouse manager there, we called him Snake. I used to bring Milo, he was like about 4, and I'd leave him in the locker room with Snake. And Snake taught him how to make like the best paper airplane and all this stuff. He kind of, while he was doing his work, he sort of babysat him the whole time. Uh,
That's a cool environment for a kid to have. I had my kids after baseball, but it would have been cool to have them in that
yeah,
environment.
it was really fun to get to bring him. Junior Spivey was on the team, and he'd bring his kid.
Yeah.
His kid's now a D1, football player. And but Milo did real well in high school. He got drafted by the Royals in 2022. He's in spring training right now, so this is his 3rd season. He got to play in Australia, not the winter before. It's cool, like that he gets to experience a lot of the same things.
Yeah. You're probably 2 hours away from where you live to where he's in spring training. Have you gotten up there yet this spring?
No, I'll get up there in the next few weeks, though. Yeah, I'm 2.5 from Surprise because I'm on the south. I'm south of Tucson. He's on the northwest side of Phoenix. That's that little edge.
So he's got his 3rd spring training with the Royals. That's cool. You get some good talks with him, kind of what to expect. Because let me go ahead and get into my next question. I got the 2 standardized questions that I ask
Okay.
everybody that I talk to. The first one would be, if you could call young Jim Rushford, let's say after your junior season at San Diego State, if you could call that young man about the same age as Milo and give him some advice to prepare him for a career in professional baseball, what would you offer for him?
Well, the first thing is hit the weights, but also just understanding what is expected of you. If you think you want to get drafted or signed out of college, you need to put up these kind of numbers. This is the bar. This is what you're going for. This is what they're looking for. And just to be relaxed. Don't let anxiety get to you, but go hard and don't worry about the outcome because that's all you can do. If you go hard,
You got stories in this thing about your times going hard. Is it maybe
yeah.
about going hard, full speed into center field wall? It's you.
Because, I mean, I read one the other day is like you can't. When you think about the future of anxiety, it's the problem's not thinking about the future. It's that you're trying to control the future. And you can't control the future, and that's what gives you the anxiety. Other than just planning ahead and having a good plan, that's what the thing about the future should be. All you can do is go hard in the moment and just keep going hard, and sooner or later, it's going to lead you somewhere good. It might not be where you originally set
I
out
love
for,
that.
but you'll get to where you should be.
I love that. The second question is, if you could go back, you got the same magic phone and you can call yourself, say around 2006, 7, 8, and you kind of get the feeling that it's kind of winding down and you're preparing for that next step. And I imagine there's anxiety with the future there. What advice would you give yourself toward the end of your baseball career?
I think the hard part was you do get a little stale. It's like, especially because I had to keep playing winter ball to pay my bills, so I was getting no break. I was playing all year round every year, and it wasn't so much it wore on me physically; it more wore on me mentally. And I didn't have the same zest or zeal I had when I was getting my first chance, like with the Brewers. And if there's a way I could have like reinvigorated myself, oh, okay. So this is where I probably really went wrong. Is I'm really introverted, and I was there to play baseball. I wasn't really there to socialize, so I didn't do a whole lot of networking and building
Right.
friendships. I mean, I got along with everyone. It wasn't like people hated me or anything like that. I just did. Had I maybe nurtured some relationships and networked more and kept them, maybe I could have uh, segued into a career in baseball and coaching, and or even like guys move on to other things.
Yeah.
Like I think had I done that, I might have had an easy time. Yeah, and there's a lot more help now for guys. Uh,
Right.
but by the time all that came around, I could have definitely used it at the time because you know,
Right.
I was lost. I didn't know what to do. But by the time all that came around, I sort of had, I'd fallen into the mining job, and yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
needed to utilize any of those resources. But yeah, I could have at the time. I could have definitely used help there.
And maybe your help setting up this generation of
Yeah,
professional baseball players, guys that think they're going to play in the big leagues for 10 years, get a couple All-Star rings, and they flame out in Double A
but
or something like that.
thing is, I wish I had learned like a trade, like welding or some kind of just HVAC, just some kind of skill where you always can get a job, and it's perfect for the off season because then maybe I could have taken a year off winter ball and worked and refreshed my mind and body or things like that. But also, it would have alleviated a lot of the
Right.
anxiety if, am I going to get released out of spring training, or when the year is over, what am I going to do? If I have these certain skills that are marketable,
Distractions. Yeah.
yeah, like that. That's what I would recommend is learn a skill or a trade or something, and then you always got it as a backup, and you can keep playing longer because like let's just say you are relegated to the independent leagues, still fun, it's good baseball. You got something you can keep playing independent ball and then just do that other job,
Right.
and you can keep it going for a while. And
Yeah. Rather than having to change, drop baseball and change careers and get into something that's semi-satisfying, right? They cooperate, and you can extend your baseball career a
yeah,
little longer. That's great.
yeah. So
I like that a lot.
I'd recommend that and I wish I had known that at a younger age.
Right. There you go. Mr. Rushford, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure catching up. Thank you, Mr. Rushford. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.
So there you go. And there's just so much more about this man's career and his life that we didn't even touch on. It's all in the book. This is something that you should read. Furthermore, for further reading, Mr. Rushford created a public figure Facebook page, and it's fascinating content. There's no pictures in this book; it's just straight words. But what he uploaded to that Facebook page was the pictures that would have been in here, plus so much more. There's hundreds of pictures of this man's life, videos as well. Videos of his first base hit, videos of his first home run, videos of him playing when he was 12 years old. And it's just the coolest thing. Separately, each of these things is cool. Together, both of these things are fascinating. So Amazon, pick up the book. I'll post a link. Facebook, follow this public figure page, Jim Rushford. It says, this fan page is to supplement my baseball autobiography with photo and video content. Both fascinating things. Thank you for stopping by today.